While we wait for them, why don't we pay a visit to Westminster, and Andrew Neil has some more guests for us. Let's see if Andrew's there.
Do indeed, Hugh. Thank you for that. We're joined by Tristram Hunt, Shadow Education spokesman under Mr. Miliband. I think we spoke about 15 hours ago.
We did, Andrew.
And we're still standing or sitting
exactly.
Anyway. Now, I was just looking at the figures. The Conservatives now have 100 seats more than Labour. I mean, I never saw that coming. I don't think you saw it coming. It's very early days, but have you come to any initial conclusions as to what happened and why?
Well, this is a really significant and damaging result for the Labour Party. Lots of communities up and down the country who rely on Labour councils and Labour governments will be feeling the effects of this. What happened was that we failed to offer a compelling vision of the future, which married a social democratic future to the personal aspirations of voters in Britain. And when we now begin to think about the future of the party, we have to think about the new landscape of Britain, the self-employed, the small business owner, the owner-occupier, and how our messages to them will think that their family's future, their material aspirations, their personal aspirations will find a home in the Labour Party. And I think with that, there's what you've been reflecting on all evening, this broader cultural conversation about nationalism. And the Labour Party needs to speak to a growing national identity in Scotland and also, crucially, a national identity in England. And the loss of Rowena Davies, for example, our candidate in Southampton, or Lucy Rigby in Lincoln, or our candidate Lee Sheriff in Carlisle, these are areas where a sense of Englishness and pride in English identity somehow didn't find an expression through the Labour Party, and it did find an expression, certainly in Stoke-on-Trent as elsewhere, in UKIP, and that's part of the framing we have to think about.
Now, you're into a leadership contest. We don't know exactly how quickly, but it'll probably be pretty quickly. Before you determine who your new leader should be, don't you need to decide what kind of centre-left party you want to be?
I think that's exactly right, and this is a challenge social democratic parties are wrestling with all over Europe, and we're seeing in many parts of Europe a hollowing out of social democratic parties. So we need to have a full, open, frank conversation, and today our calling on the NEC not to rush our leadership.
That's the Labour and the National Executive Committee.
The Labour National Executive Committee, not to rush our election of a leader and deputy leader. This needs to take time. We're going to face the full horrors of a 5-year fixed-term parliament, it seems, with this
because the Tories are probably in for 5 years now, aren't they?
So we have time to do this and think about ourselves and who should lead us properly and appropriately. We can't have any machine politics. We can't have any stitch and fix of this. This needs to take place with, I think, a really detailed and quite brutal post-mortem about what's happened and the underlying thinking and philosophy and organisation behind it.
Is there a danger, as always happens, particularly when Labour loses elections, that you get into a rather arid argument of we lost because we were too left-wing, no, we lost because we weren't left-wing enough?
Yes, and I think we do have to go beyond that. We do have to go beyond those old sort of Blair-Brown dichotomies. I think one of the regrets I had about the general election campaign, not the Labour Party campaign, but the whole conversation, was how we didn't really address the big issues about the impact of technology on Western labour markets, about the ageing society and our social welfare model, about European competitiveness. Let's have that then in the Labour leadership contest and bring in new voices. I think one of Ed Miliband's great legacies as leader of the party was the pluralism and diversity he brought to it, but also the reforms to party organisation, which meant that actually lots of people can be involved in picking the new leader and discussing what he or she thinks.
Is there an underlying tension within Labour, which isn't so much left-right, but it's about who is comfortable and has done well out of globalisation, the people in London and so on, and we had, I think it was John Mann on earlier, from a lot of traditional working class voters, certainly coming from working class families in the north, feel that it's kind of passed them by. They've not had the benefits, and they may just not vote, or they don't vote for Labour, or they may even toy with UKIP.
That's exactly right. I think what we found in many seats for the people who said they weren't voting actually were going to go and vote UKIP. And they did feel left behind by globalisation. And again, that's both economic in terms of migration and depression of wages, often in manual industries, but also culture, and a fear that they couldn't express their culture, that they weren't allowed to do that. And again, we in the Labour Party need to be very confident about supporting that space and encouraging that diversity and encouraging that celebration of Englishness and Scottishness, but within a party of the Union. And we are under pressure on that because there's pressure from UKIP in the south and there's pressure from the SNP in the north, but we still remain a party of the United Kingdom.
It seems to me it's going to be quite a long struggle back. I mean, Scotland is a huge mountain you now have to I mean, the SNP may be at their peak now, it won't get better for them, but there's a huge mountain for you to climb. As I said, you're 100 seats behind the Tories. And the Tories, I was speaking to Grant Shapps earlier, the chairman of the Tory party, they will now come in with the boundary changes now happen, and that's another 20, 25 seats to the Tories. So it's you've got to get the analysis right and then get your act together quite quickly, don't you?
Exactly, but I think we've got to get over thinking if only we won 10 seats here or 15 seats. This is a step change. This is a conceptual change in the Labour movement and the Labour Party and how we think about ourselves. And if we're worrying about losing 15 seats because of boundary changes, yes, that is problematic. But when you've got a convincing argument about the future, about a social democratic future, which speaks to people's aspirations, then the mechanics will take care of themselves.
You're a historian. The situation Labour finds itself in now, can you see a previous point in history where it faced similar challenges and had to rise to that?
Yes, I mean, one can obviously point to 83 and what happened with the party there. One can go right back to 29 and some of the challenges which flowed from coalition politics right back then. But I think we should have faith in the Labour Party. I think we should have faith in Labour values. One of the hugely humbling experiences of being involved in a general election campaign is meeting just all the brilliant volunteers and activists and council candidates and parliamentary candidates. And there is a viable Labour movement out there. And one of our strengths in the campaign was just the sheer numbers of people we could put on the streets. But somehow the message that we were selling with and through those people was not connecting with the public.
Yes. Do you think that Ed Miliband has stood down? And Ed Balls has lost his seat, which is obviously a personal, real disappointment for him. And a lot of people in the Labour Party who admired him will be sad to see that happen too. If you want to look on the bright side, could you take the view, well, it draws a line under that. It draws a line over all these arguments about was the deficit too big in 2007? Did they spend too much? Let's get over that, and it gives you a fresh start.
I think that might be an argument for the future. I think today we pay tribute to the great leadership of Ed Miliband and the way he conducted himself as leader of the party, and similarly for Ed Balls and the way, that hammer blow to lose your seat as Shadow Chancellor, didn't see it coming with great dignity and poise. And I think those of us still in the Parliamentary Labour Party pay tribute to both the great leadership of the Eds.
What about Tristram Hunt, leader of the Labour Party?
That again is for another day. It's about the lyrics as much as the lead singer, I think.
Very well. Thank you very much, Tristram Hunt. Let's go back to Hugh.
What a very neat, prepared answer that was.